Start your clock, buddy.
Okay. 9 o'clock.
You're watching a video of Cy Swan in his shop, in his element, doing what he does best, and that is producing something of beauty and practicality just as fast as he can. We've been planning this video now for weeks. The goal is to start from a cold forge and have a cable Damascus knife done, finished, functional, sharp, in less than 4 hours. I think he'll beat that by a wide margin. You're going to get acquainted with Cy, or at least you're going to get acquainted with the way he works, which is like no one else. He's an 80-year-old man with 80 head of mother cows, timberlands to manage, 2 bulldozers and an excavator that he operates every summer doing dirt work for the neighbors, and a blacksmith and machine shop like few people ever get a chance to see, much less work in. He doesn't worry about pain. In fact, I think it just sharpens his focus. He doesn't worry about risk. In fact, if the project does not contain an element of risk, either to his body or to his project, he's going to find a way to put the risk into the project just to sustain interest. Boy, does it make for fascinating days in the shop. I'm delighted that you're getting a chance to see Cy do what he does best. Welcome to the Green Valley Forge. Cy's dad had a coal forge and an anvil from Cy's earliest recollection, and so from time to time he was drawn as a child out to the forge to play with the hot iron. It was not until he was in his 50s, beginning to slow down his cattle business, and with discretionary time now available for the first time, he turned to blacksmithing in a serious way. There was another fellow local to where Cy lived whose name was Geronimo. How's that for the name of a blacksmith instructor? He was retired from big-time racetrack horseshoeing and had, upon moving to Oregon, set up a forge and begun to take on students in artist blacksmithing. Cy was an apt student. It didn't take him long to learn most of everything that Geronimo could teach, and he began to acquire tools and indulge his passion for creating and learning and hitting things hard. One of the first things he was attracted to was weapons, swords and knives and axes, partially driven by the fact that his warrior ethos had attracted him to the Marine Corps as a young man, and it had been sort of a fascination of his all of his life. The swords and knives began to emerge from the shop, and the quality became better and better until it is just darn good. Geronimo died way too soon. It was an example of a heart attack that could have and should have been headed off. But in any case, Geronimo's widow liquidated the contents of the shop. Cy got some of it, including his bull power hammer. It's not that big, although it seemed big to him when he first got it. It had belonged to Geronimo. He does a lot of work here, particularly the finer work, organic shapes, rose petals, leaves, drawing out smaller pieces, scrolls, the things that don't require a real heavy blow. And he uses his big one, which is a 400-pound Baudry, for everything else. There's a bit of a story in his getting this Baudry. He found it for sale in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and not being one to wait around, made the deal and made arrangements to pick it up immediately. It just happened to be in the middle of the winter, in the middle of the worst ice storm that they had had in decades. In any case, he flew to Denver, met his friend Leonard Moog. They jumped in Leonard's truck with a trailer and headed to Oklahoma, loaded up the Baudry, headed back to the Pacific Northwest. Most of the trip was done on snow and ice. No harm, no accident, no misfortune. Got it home and immediately went to work, poured 7 yards of concrete in the foundation that was excavated after they tore the wall out of the shop to make room. Pretty soon the bodery was up and thumping away. He uses it every day. One of the things you'll notice as you watch Cy make this knife spring into existence is that he never measures anything. Now occasionally he does, but he has a real gift for estimating distance and size. It's rare when he does not guess a length or a thickness or a distance to within a 1/16 if it's less than 2 inches, to within 1/4 of an inch if it's less than 10 inches. He's just really good at it. In any case, that makes him ideally suited to being a blacksmith because it's measure by eye, cut it on a hardy, and hammer it till it fits, is one of the cliches about the craft. But watch him. These things just sort of spontaneously emerge from his hands. He'll cut that billet off on that hot cut, spin it around, begin to size the handle down, and when it's all done, the knife will be well proportioned. It'll feel good in your hand. It's fun to watch him do this.
Are you with that part of the conversation, the tray, the board?
He's fixing one of those things in his hand.
Yeah, it's the way to go.
Now, don't misunderstand my comments about measuring. He measures a lot when he's doing machine work. But when he's forging, when he's working at the anvil with hammer and tongs, it's strictly with his calibrated eye, making the cuts and estimating distances and volumes with remarkable accuracy. The holes are somewhat larger than the rivets that he will be using later. That'll be explained towards the end of this process. But in general terms, it's always faster to hot punch high carbon steel than to try to drill it. You may have already encountered how difficult it is to make a high carbon steel bit drill through high carbon steel. It's nearly impossible. It takes an expensive and specialized bit to do it consistently, but you can hot punch right away. And with accuracy, depending on how much time you take, that is plenty good enough for most tasks like this.
Yeah, let's absolutely do that.
Watch Cy run this grinder. It's a 2x72. Any serious knife maker has just got to have one of these things. His is manufactured by Square D, and it's a 4-wheel rig. 4 wheels in the configuration of a 2x72 give it all sorts of versatility for different attachments, different size wheels. There's a million things you can do with a machine like this. Look at him grind this knife. Can you see how automatic it is? The truth of the matter is he almost doesn't have to think about it. After some amount of time, you may have experienced what is known as muscle memory. Our muscles learn how to do a task and our brain can disengage. It's at that point that we begin to have true mastery of whatever the process is. The process becomes more enjoyable, the quality of the work goes up, and it becomes something more than just craft. It becomes a fluid expression of the person himself. Now don't think for a minute that you ought to try to cut a piece of copper freehand like this on the edge of a carborundum cutoff wheel. It's dangerous. Don't try it at home. And if you do, count your fingers before you start, and at the end of the process, make sure you have the same number. He's silver soldering this bolster onto this blade. It's a fairly high temp silver solder. It's hard, it's strong. He does this prior to heating and tempering because the melting temperature of the solder is high enough that he can quench that blade and then temper it back without loosening up the solder. You're watching a differential quench. He's leaving the back or spine of the knife in an unhardened condition. That will provide ductility and toughness in the blade. He's heating the edge up to critical temperature and will quench it in water, which is ordinarily too aggressive a quench when you're hardening the whole blade. But when the edge is connected to a back or a spine that has not been hardened at all, it will not crack, or at least it shouldn't.
File is skating.
It's skating, it's not cutting.
Fully hard.
As opposed, see how different that sounds?
He's tempering it back to about a bronze temper. That's around 400, 450 degrees. It's hard, but not so hard that it'll break easily. It'll hold an edge a long time and provide a durable working blade for this Bowie knife. Burr that I just bevel the edges of the holes so when I put my rivets in there, it has a place for the thread. He's using 5-minute epoxy because this is a high-speed knife. He would use a little longer set time epoxy ordinarily, which yields a higher ultimate strength. But he's fighting the clock, and so 5 minutes is all the epoxy gets.
Now if this were a Damascus blade, I would wrap this. You know, even though we've drilled these and they're still fit.
So you're saying it doesn't matter?
Right.
I was trying to make the hole in the tang the same size as the
That would be fine, but it really doesn't matter. Stop and think about it.
Yeah.
That epoxy squeezed into there, it's going to solidify all around that.
could be
rivet.
rock hard.
Yeah, in compression.
And sometimes, no matter how careful you are, when you put the handles back on, it's misaligned and you can't get your pins in.
Whereas what you just did, I mean, that went together very slick.
Yeah.
And you're pressing on the tang anyways when you're moving the handle, so it's not like you can
the
push
tang,
those.
the tang is taking the weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and being a full tang, this is the strongest
Yes.
possible.
Handle for now. Yeah, but I learned a whole lot just watching this little piece here.
So look at this knife. It's a clipped point buoy. All of this has been done on the fly, just according to his sense of proportion, size, heft. It's going to be a well-proportioned knife. Cy has a very sort of an elemental working perspective on blades, and they are working blades. We're about 2 hours and 15 minutes into this right now. Cy and I have been talking about this project for the last, probably 2 weeks. And he thought that probably he'd have 3.5, maybe as much as 4 hours into this project. Right now, he's at 2 hours and 15 minutes. Except for the time for the epoxy to set up, and except for the time that it will take for the etchant to pronounce the characteristic of the cable Damascus, I think he's going to spank this thing in about 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's really getting it done. He's an 80-year-old man. This is unbelievable. You'll notice the etchant is being dissolved in warm water. That's because a higher temperature accelerates the reaction. Once again, in an effort to get this knife done in a hurry, he's speeding up every process that he can. But in general, it's good practice to warm up your etchant, possibly even warm up the blade, in order to get a nice, aggressive etch that'll show off the beauty of the Damascus characteristic.
What I'll do, Nate, is I'll go out there on the grinder and I grind these things flat because this doesn't rivet as well as it would when it's smooth. How long?
2 hours and 40 minutes.
I could have done this in 3 hours if I wouldn't mess around.
Still might.
I didn't think you were messing around.
By running this opposite of the way that the grinder goes, I can get more of these lines out of here. And if I were really trying to make a nice knife, I would hand sand these until they were all gone.
Right here, like this.
Yeah. And it really doesn't take too long with that wet sandpaper. So now we wait.
Cool.
Do you see the HAMON line? That describes the point at which the blade stopped being at critical temperature just before being plunged into the water. The characteristic of the steel is different there, including its characteristic in being etched by the ferric chloride. Hard to imagine, but the hardness of the steel actually influences the color of the finished blade.
No, I don't want it.
Shine it up. Now you may be watching Cy work in this shop and think to yourself, well, I'll never be able to make a knife because I don't have all these tools. Well, there's no question about it. Tools make the job so much easier and in many cases more fun.
Wow.
But Cy worked a long time without this wide assortment of high-end tooling.
Pattern was.
There are videos on YouTube. Green Beetle has one or two good ones
See where I
about
hardened it.
making
Way
very
more.
nice knives with very simple tooling.
Yeah.
And you can do that too.
And if I'd
There's a
hardened
certain minimal number of tools that you've just got to have, but they are much less sophisticated than you may think, much more affordable than you may fear, and if you devote yourself to it, you're going to find what you need to make knives. It's a hobby you will never tire of. That's a knife!
Three-hour knife.
That's not bad. Not bad
we
at
got
all.
2 a day, and we'll give you an hour off for lunch.
Yeah, that's right.
I know Maxine's got some elk stew there.
Okay, just a second. Is this gonna shave my arm?
Oh boy, he's stripping down to the bare necessities.
I can get it sharper than that.
You may have to.
I mean, I didn't spend a whole lot of time
Here,
doing
here,
this.
here.
I think it's cutting.
Oh yeah, shaving beautifully.
He grew that hair just for today.
Yeah, there you go.
Gross.
Now shave it all.
Do this. Put this in the safe. Put that in the safe spot.
Oh, thank you. Look
I
out
can
here.
hold the rest of this. I just want to look at this.